The Halo universe is filled with wonder, mystery, and fascinating discoveries around every corner. With so much to explore, four friends decided it was about time that they boot up their consoles and discuss this universe that has grabbed their attention since childhood. JumperScape Audio kindly welcomes you to join them in the library.
Welcome back to the library, everyone. Joining us again for having a good time with Halo and stuff like that. This week we're talking about the Covenant and all of its many facets. Covenant. Of course, I'm Austin, joined once again by my buddies Shane, James, and Bryant, talking all about all sorts of fun things, mostly just the Covenant, though. So, why talk about the Covenant? Simple. I wanted to. So, the Covenant. Also referred to as the Covenant Empire or the Covenant Hegemony, which of course nobody calls it that.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Hegemony.
Hegemony. I'm so glad you asked.
Bro, you're built like a hegemony.
Google.
Hey, yo. Google
Leadership or dominance, especially by one country or social group over others. See, hegemony is actually like a word that's used a lot, especially throughout history, but I never once looked it up, even when I was actually like writing papers about them in college. Like, no, I never spent any time. I don't know how I got grades that were that good on those papers. But anyway, so one of the main reasons why I wanted to cover this one today, gentlemen, was because, the last two episodes we covered the precursors to get us started, and then we talked about the Forerunners. And of course, the Forerunners are what the Covenant worships. It's kind of in a very inaccurate way, but they worship them. So
just slightly inaccurate,
just a little. So I figured this makes the most sense. This clicks. This checks. So we're going to be going over Covenant and other Covenant adjacent things today. Now I'm honestly getting excited for the conversation about it though, because first of all, I know for you, Shane, Hidden Xperia has a little bit of a hard-on for Covenant and Covenant-related topics. I mean, his intro, isn't it? I haven't seen him in a long time, so isn't it like some sort of, it's an elite
Silent
animation?
Shadow.
Yeah.
It's a Silent Shadow. I remember when he first posted like a new video with the new intro, he was just like, he could not stop talking about it. And rightfully so. It was really, really cool, and he kind of used like the hype from the new Elite in Halo Infinite. He kind of used, he based it off of that. I mean, he always knew, obviously, what Silent Shadows were, but he, saw it, in-game and how cool he looked, and he's like, you know what, I gotta have that.
Well, it'll be great to actually have that covered in the future, because in the future, we are going to talk about the Silent Shadow. It's going to be way down the line as far as how we're scheduling this stuff out, but it is going to be something that we talk about, because the Silent Shadow are, in the scientific world, considered to be cool. So,
wow, very nice.
And on the other side of things, going over to you, Brian and James. Brian, I know that you have been reading a good amount of the Covenant-related books recently.
I have.
Yeah.
They've been very interesting. There was the one that you recommended to me where it talked about basically the origins of how the Sanshayim met the
Broken Circle.
Sangheili. Yeah, Broken Circle. That was really good. So I've been getting a lot of insights into that, so it's been very eye-opening, and there's a lot of twists that give a very different feel to the whole shebang.
Yeah, after reading one book, you can really start seeing a lot of different stuff going on with Halo 2, especially, since that was the end of everything. But we'll go into that later. Now, James, I'm just excited to talk about Covenant with you, just because you are the Covenant.
I am.
You're the embodiment of it.
I am basically, I would describe myself as a Covenant enjoyer, maybe even a supremacist.
Covenant enthusiast. You go to James's LinkedIn, it doesn't have anything else. It had no work history, no degree from high school and or college. It just said it's a blank, screen, and at the very top in big black font, Covenant enthusiast. That's it.
Yes,
that's all there is.
That's a pretty spot on description of my whole personality.
Even outside of gaming, he introduces,
that's
hey, I'm
all
James.
I have.
You have do you still have the
I
arbiter
just
on your dash?
immediately. No, that has been since removed because I no longer own that vehicle.
I was hoping you were gonna put him onto your new car.
Yeah, but then you see, when I switched vehicles and I realized how hard it was to take it off, I was like, huh.
Huh. That's it. Huh.
Well, it still exists, and that's all we really need.
Yeah, so he's still hanging out. He's still around.
Good. We need to keep RB around. I think I don't think I actually have any elites. I thought I had at least one, but aside
I have
from
several. I like to have one in every room of the house to keep me warm.
They don't want you to know this, but you can just take an elite. I have 47 elites at home.
I really love that meme. That's like the grunts on the Halo rings are free. You could take them home. I have 127 grunts.
It's been so long since I've seen that meme, I couldn't remember the whole thing.
It's burned into my memory. I will never forget that meme. It made me laugh so hard. And plus the number of times that in our group chats we would spam that meme.
Yes, that was a good one.
Good times.
But to get us officially started on the topic, I was thinking the best way to go about it would be, I don't really want to go too deep into their history just because there's too many layers.
We'd be sitting here for hours.
Too many species. So we'll take whenever we get to future seasons of this show and everything, we'll talk about the actual species themselves and have fun with that. But for now, it's just the Covenant as a whole, as a single identity, that whole thing. So the Covenant started actually a long time ago, a really long time ago.
In a galaxy far, sorry.
Actually, it's
wrong
our
franchise.
galaxy. That's the wild part.
Yeah, I was thinking of the wrong franchise. My bad.
In a galaxy right in front of you, there were there were two different species that it decided to intermingle and communicate with one another, and that is the Senshayum, or the creatures that would become the prophets, and the Sangheli, or the elites. And these two, I mean, they weren't exactly like friends to start with. They were for a bit, kind of. But then, because of how the Sanshayum saw Forerunner artifacts and how they would be like, hey, we should use these as weapons. And the Sangheli are like, no. And so they got into a fight.
No.
Which, surprisingly enough, actually lasted 86 years. I'm not exactly sure how the Sangheli kept up a fight using rather primitive weapons for that long, but they did.
Pretty much sticks.
I was gonna say, I remember, like, I forget, I might have seen it on a terminal, but I remember, like, it showed life, Sangheli life, like, before they joined the Covenant.
Yep. And
before the Senshayum arrived, and, like, it gave me, like, there was, like, a boat, and they were just, like, using fucking paddles still, like, on this boat, and it just reminded me, like, kind of very, very Viking-esque, and kind of put it into perspective, like, where they were technologically, like, before, you know, everything hit the fan.
Yeah.
Well, the obvious
they had
allegory
created
with the
some of their own-
Sangheli is Japanese culture, like feudal society. Just with the way they speak, the way they carry themselves, really like invokes the samurai. Especially if you look at any like media about pre-Covenant, like Sangheli colonies. So that's the imagery that always pops out to me. So basically, it's like a bunch of samurai going up against, like, you know, a sci-fi future army, and they held out for decades.
Yeah, which was
Very based.
ridiculous. Were you gonna say something, Bryant?
They did have some of their own spaceships, though, right? They had become a spacefaring species at that point when they met the Sanshayum.
At the point that they met the Sanshayum, so as far as I'm aware, they had either just adopted it and thus didn't know exactly how to use it, or didn't have it at all. Because their technology advanced with the Covenant at the same time. So when it came to adapting technology over to the Covenant, there wasn't much to adapt. But they were at least recently spacefaring. So much of the combat was not spacefaring. And to that point, most of the reason why it wouldn't be spacefaring was because of the terrifying fact that the Sanshayum had the dreadnought. And that thing I mean, it's a Forerunner ship that no one knows how to destroy. So the Sangheili were like, nah, and just gave up.
The gist that I got was that if it hadn't been for the Dreadnought, the Sangheili probably would have won.
Yeah, they were strong.
Yes,
they were resilient.
Well, it shows the difference in.
Go ahead, James. Go ahead.
It shows the difference in philosophy in the reason that they fought in the first place. The Sangheili, their main disagreement was the use of Forerunner artifacts. The Sangheili wanted to preserve them, not use them, and basically worship them. And the Sandshayun were fully willing to exploit all of their, benefits. So, yeah, the Dreadnought is the reason they won. And also the reason they got their way.
I was going to say that was the question I was basically going to ask, because again, still kind of learning bits and pieces as we go.
Yeah,
I know there was like certain species that didn't join the Covenant willingly. I was going to ask, like, did they simply just eventually give up and join, or like did they willingly go and join
so
them?
it was a mix. They surrendered, but they also over time slowly adopted the Covenant's way of thinking. But
that much is obvious.
Yeah, there was still over time though, there were still leaks of, well, that doesn't make much sense in the elites ranks.
In Halo 3, before the Arbiter kills Truth, he's like, your kind never believed in the promise of the Sacred Ring, so like there was always some type of doubts. But I mean, if they were technologically outmatched, then they had to do what they had to do to survive.
They had to do what they had to do, which is ridiculous. But that's just how it was. Once that got started, though, that was when the Covenant really began, because by that point, I mean, there was these two species that had started working together, and it started growing from there. Over the course of like 1,000 years, the Covenant started gathering, actually close to 2,000. They started gathering up all these different kinds of species. The first one they grabbed were the Lekgolo, which is the hunters. They got those thanks to the work of a arbiter that tamed them. The second one that they grabbed was the Yanmei, which were the drones, those little flying bugger things.
I was going to say, that's another name I didn't know. Them and the Brutes are the names that like I was drawing a blank on.
So Halo 2 shipped, the limited edition shipped with this special booklet that told you all the species names at the end of it. And I just read it repeatedly until I remembered all of them. That was like 10 years ago.
I've learned the names basically just by playing with you guys, honestly.
That makes sense.
Like, I mean, and like, obviously terminals exist, and I've picked up a few things from terminals. But like outside of that, like it's definitely been just playing with you guys. The Sangheili obviously is the most memorable.
Pop quiz, what's a Kigyar?
That's a jackal.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
a jackal.
This might be a hot take, and I know James is going to disagree with me. In my opinion, the Kigyar are the most fascinating aspect of the Covenant.
Oh wow!
In my opinion,
here's the thing. I don't agree, but I can't. I also agree. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
because they're the most. They're most. They're weirdly. They're so uncomplex that they're extremely complex. They are basically animals. Like,
yeah, it's kind of that. In my opinion, definitely. Definitely Sangheili are definitely up there, but I was gonna say definitely the scariest if you think about them, especially like in Halo 4, like just in Halo 4 through 5, how they act and how they talked, and the rework design behind them, definitely scary. And I like how they're like more or less scavengers and bounty hunters and pirates, like literal fucking space pirates that just go around and will work for the highest bidder.
Nothing will make you more scared of the Kigyar / Jackals than Hunt the Truth Season 2.
No, that's exactly
season.
That's what I was thinking of. That's exactly what I was thinking of when we were on our way to Outpost Discovery. We listened to that, and I remember listening to the chapter when they were on the ship with the Kigyar.
The description of what it's like inside of a Jackal pirate ship is still in my brain and still makes me just go... like
it's something
makes
about
me feel
them.
sick.
Yeah, it's just something about them that I've always been fascinated with, and then just for whatever reason, they're incredible shots as well. Like they have great accuracy, and it's just, I don't know, something about that just like really
It's them
intrigues
bird
me.
eyes.
Like something so animal can be that intelligent and have that kind of like knowledge for weaponry. Pretty scary stuff.
Well, just wait, because we're going to get to the real experts here in a second, which is this is actually kind of surprising to me. But after the Yanmei, we got the Kegyar. The Kegyar were basically just bought. The Covenant were just, hey, this would be kind of neat, and the Kegyar are like mutual benefit, and so they just they just hopped in.
That's what I said. Like to the high, they work for the highest bidder.
And the Covenant is definitely that.
Now, for sure.
Jackals are pretty
obviously-
quirky. They did poison the gene pool of the grunts.
Yeah, they
Quirky.
gotta love the good old Ungoli rebellion. But that like all things considered and how far like advanced the Covenant was, like obviously humanity didn't have anything to offer them, but imagine humanity did. Imagine humanity had something that the Kegyar actually wanted in the midst of like the Great Schism or something like that, and humanity is like, hey, we have cool stuff for you. Kill the prophets and come join and fight for humanity. I don't put it past them to do that.
Well, to an extent, humanity did have something for them because Kegyar were known to trade with humans, especially the outer colonies.
Cole Protocol goes all about that. Like Cole
Oh,
Protocol is
That's something I didn't know that. Like, is that did they do that before or after the? I mean, obviously
during.
not fucking before. During, really?
Yeah, there was
not all. Yeah, not all the jackals were a part of the Covenant. There were different. They're like clans and stuff. I don't know if that's the right term.
Tribes, probably,
if you will.
How I would say it.
Yeah, the tribes of. Not all the tribes of the Kegyar were a part of the Covenant, and some of them just actually lived on human colony worlds.
Yep.
Didn't know that.
Yep, but that specific planet didn't end too well, so that story is a good one.
Oh gosh.
But hey, the ODSTs were popping off in that story.
Yes, they were.
You guys might have to educate me on that.
That's
Sounds
fine. We're
pretty
just
cool.
going to dedicate an entire season of this show to books one day, guarantee it.
Yeah, I mean
I'll just be like, all right,
Honestly-
gentlemen, here's the reading assignment for the week.
Yeah, Shane, all you have to do really
Yeah,
with
more
what
like
you're
my
saying with
Audible
not
assignment.
knowing- Yeah, all you have with what you're saying about not knowing the species names and stuff like that, all you have to do is read one of the books that has a decent perspective from the Covenant side, and it'll just be ingrained in your brain after that, because the amount of times they say the actual names of the species instead of drones or brutes or elites, it just gets ingrained into your brain.
It's so funny.
It is kind of weird. Obviously, it's for players, but it is kind of weird when you do step back and think about it, that in the games you hear the Covenant refer to them by their human given names.
I like to think of it as the same experience as when America started taking on the name Yankee from the British because it was an insult.
They just rep it.
It's like,
Gotta
I
own it.
like the ring
Well, see,
of
like-
that, and just started using
Well, it's the same thing as like colonists coming to the Americas, like start saying, Indians, because, that's just how it caught, because they thought they were in India.
Yeah.
And then like native tribes started being like, us Indians. Like,
I mean, to be fair though, like we gave them some pretty cool names. Like imagine like you start fighting your enemy and they're like, oh my god, here comes an elite, and they're like, oh, I like that. I'm gonna start calling.
That sounds cool.
Damn,
all the names.
Ungoy.
Check. Yeah, I was gonna say the poor grunts though. That's the only one I wouldn't be happy with. But who cares what the grunts think? Apparently,
Exactly.
and that's probably
But, like,
why
the
the
brutes,
brutes do call them grunts. So that does check.
hunter, like the hunt, like dude, like all around, we give them some pretty cool names.
Hunter is
So,
probably
I mean-
the biggest understatement of what they are.
No,
like,
yeah.
ever.
Yes,
I mean,
there
hear
they
'em,
are.
honestly,
there's a twin pair of horrors beyond my human comprehension.
Yeah, if you saw, like, think of it this way: if like you gave someone who knows nothing about Halo a word box and then pictures, they would probably look at the hunter and say, or they'd probably see the word hunter and put it with like jackal or something. Like,
A jackal would probably, like, if you call, yeah. I mean, I could definitely see getting like looking at a jackal and calling it a hunter, like that checks out for me. That makes a lot of sense for some reason. I mean, I can't even say for some reason. It's just, I don't know, again, how animal they look and how they act. Like, I mean, obviously, like if you were just going off a picture, but just by looking at it, I don't know. There's something about them.
going into the species that started getting into the Covenant, the last one to join in was the Jiralhane, but the species just before the Jiralhane and the species after the Kig-Yar were the Ungoi, and those are the Grunts. Also, Jiralhane are the Brutes, but the Grunts was, I mean, their story is funny because they were
sad.
taken
What
from.
do you mean funny?
I think it's funny because of how long it took for it to happen. Because first of all, the Grunts were taken from their homeworld and used as a laborer race, basically. Like they were just.
What's funny?
Here's the funny part: it took them 320 years for them to rebel.
Yeah.
So
sounds about right.
This kind of sucks. 300 years
what
later.
do you mean? We're living the life. No, we're not.
Suck on food nipple. Life great.
Life great.
Gosh.
So basically, the Grunts had this whole rebellion. It was a real hodgepodge of mistakes and things, and so the prophets are like, "Oh no, bro!" And they send in the Arbiter. They have a new Arbiter, and then send the Arbiter in to deal with that. And so the Arbiter, with a calm, collected head, goes, destroy their homeworld. And so they do that. And so the Sangheili absolutely obliterated the planet, turned that bad boy to glass. There's only a little bit of it left that's still somewhat habitable, but that's never going to happen anyway, so who cares? And so then after that happened, the Grunts disheartened beyond belief, and now by this point pretty much entirely inbred, thanks to that thing that we brought up earlier about the Kig-Yar poisoning Grunt genotypes, or genetics, basically. They were still intelligent and they were still smart. They were still strong. I was trying to say that. They were still intelligent and they were still strong, but they have this new layer of idiocy to them.
Very evident in the games.
Yeah, and so like they learned the English language faster than any other species. They can learn equipment, vehicles, weapons faster than any other species, and they clearly demonstrate intelligence throughout the entirety of the story. But of course, they are still small. They're weak and fragile in comparison to all the other species. So who really cares? But once the Jiralhane got brought in, which they were in the middle of a civil war when they were found, and the Covenant were like, hey, stop it. And so they did. Those things happen all the time. It's fine. It does that all the time. So
Civil War number like 370.
The Covenant finally is fully complete. There are a couple other species here and there, like Huragok and stuff. There's one other species that I know about, but I don't remember the name, and there's only like 500 of them, so it doesn't really matter anyway. But there are other species. It's just they more serve as like citizenry in a way. So like the Covenant is a lot of other species. We just don't get to see them all. There's actually like in terms of Halo lore, we don't actually know all the species the Covenant had in its ranks. We only know about the ones that were used the most frequent.
I did not know that.
There were others. Yeah, so there were others. We don't know what they were. We know about one of them because
That's
of
slightly terrifying. I'm not gonna lie though.
We do know about one of them thanks to Nightfall, though. That one random alien at the beginning that was getting interrogated by Locke. That species is from the Covenant.
Oh,
but we're probably never going to see them again, though, because people were like, "That looks so much like it was ripped from Star Wars."
huh.
So
I
they
don't
just
remember. I saw Nightfall like once. I don't remember the alien you're talking about.
I saw it 1.5 times. I fell asleep during my second viewing.
Why is it not good?
I remember.
It's a good way to put it.
It matches Locke.
It's kind of interesting. Locke is the
boring.
most interesting character aside from the Spartan in that movie.
Huh.
But anyway, so after the Covenant is finally, for the most part, complete and ready to go, they decided to continue their search for Forerunner artifacts. So they're using these fancy little devices that I once again forgot the name of. Bryant help. The
Luminaries.
Luminaries, yes. They were using those things and scouring the galaxy looking for Forerunner artifacts. when they come upon a planet that is straight up covered in the stuff. Like, it is riddled with Forerunner artifacts. That's baller, says the Covenant. So they send in their brute chieftain at the time, Maccabeus, and this dude goes down. He's like, hey, yo, I don't mean to alarm you. This is not artifacts. This whole species is registering as Forerunner.
Yeah.
They're like, well, that's not cool. That kind of undermines the whole
Hey, man,
purpose,
that's not
right?
cool.
Because we're supposed to be the ones that go on the great journey. What do you think, Truth? Kill them. Oh, okay. So...
Hey there, Halo fans. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with our friends right after these messages.
Yeah, I don't think Maccabeus ever actually realized it was the humans that were registering as the artifacts.
He didn't, but Maccabeus
think
really did want peace.
Yeah, but like it's wild that even the guys that were on the Covenant that were on the scene, they didn't realize what was happening. They thought they were just hiding all the artifacts, and then when the prophets realize what's going on, thanks to one of the oracles or whatever they're actually called, one of Mr. Forgeballs, they learn the truth and literally decide that genocide is the answer.
Oh, are you talking about the AI that was in the why am I forgetting the Dreadnought?
The Dreadnought. Yeah, was he not a Forgeball?
So the AI of the ship itself was alive.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a monitor, but it was like an AI that was left alive on the ship. I'm fairly certain there's some arguments that have been made that it was mimicking Bias himself.
Oh, okay. I must have misunderstood the way it was described. I think I just translated it into a monitor in my brain.
Yeah, I could see, like, I'm of course I have my resources pulled up, so I could just like read as I'm explaining stuff and see if there's anything that they say about that. But yeah, all that they really say on the broad scale of things is the prophets purposely misinterpreted things so that they could lead the Sanshayum down a path that would lead to their loss of personal power.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a good way to put it. That's pretty neutral.
And that's something that I think that was the biggest. Like, obviously that's a big thing, but I think that was the biggest thing that changes the way that Halo feels to me, like the war with the Covenant, because to an extent, like, there's like it's very evident even in real life how wars and disagreements can break out. I don't know why I did it in that order. Disagreements and even war can break out due to differences in opinion of religion, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think to an extent, I thought it was sort of sad for the Covenant to have this belief, like, no knowing where it first originated and how long they'd been doing it, but obviously been going for thousands of years. And then so they have this strong belief, and they see these people that are desecrating their holy relics, and they're doing what they think is right. And so to an extent at first I'm like, well, that's kind of sad that they're just wrong. And then you find out they knew the whole time, and you're just like, oh, okay, well, never mind, you guys suck.
and I did find the detailed explanation of it, so I'm just going to rip straight from Halopedia here so I don't get anything wrong. So before their coup, the prophets visited the philologist Had Rumd, leader of the ascetic priests aboard the Forerunner Dreadnought and keeper of the Oracle, which was actually the long-dormant Mendicant Bias, an ancient AI that had not spoken to anyone for thousands of years. When the Illuminations of Harvest were inserted into its matrix, it suddenly reactivated and revealed that the basis of their religious institutions was in fact a misinterpretation. Not only were recently discovered humans considered equals to the Forerunners by the Oracle, but the hallowed reclamation glyph in the Covenant faith actually meant reclaimer. They believed erroneously that humans were descended from the Forerunners, a fact that directly contradicted the central tenet of the core of the Covenant religion, that none would be left behind when the Great Journey began. If humans were the chosen successors of the Forerunners, or were surviving Forerunners themselves, yet had not transcended when the sacred rings were last activated, then that meant that the Halos would not provide godhood to all who walked the divine path.
Yep.
And so the prophets are like, that's stupid, and just ignored it, and just continued leading it down a path trying to kill all of humanity so that they could, I guess, at some point find a way to rise to their own godhood, but ultimately it just drove them insane. So
it got to the point that like they felt like they knew the rings would not like do what they thought it would do. They were so stubborn. They were so incredibly stubborn. They knew like lighting these rings would kill everything, but just to keep up their own little facade, they were like, "Oh no, we're still gonna do it." Even the brutes get exposed. They sit there and watch. The brutes sit there in Halo 3 and watch truth say, "I admit I need your help, but that truth dies with the rest of you." Like the brutes, there's brutes sitting there like, "Hey, what do you mean you need him? Like what? Like you put two? Are you that stupid?" And they actually,
I mean, they are that
to my
stupid.
understanding, I was gonna say, so they are, and it's just like
on average,
you sit there and you
always
watch your prophet tell you like that what this ring will do apparently, and that humanity is like a stain, and it just can't have them. But no, then you watch your deity right in front of your face be like, "Oh, actually, I need you, but everyone will die, so it doesn't matter." And the brutes still actively follow and protect him. And it's just like, dude, are you that? Like, it just made me mad. As a child, I understood, like, how stupid that was. I'm like, you guys are quite literally catching him in a lie, and you're still following him.
Well, picture it this way. There's probably a reason as to why the prophets spurred on the takeover of the brutes from the elites.
Yeah,
because the elites were getting smart about it.
No, yeah, the brutes
they needed someone stupid.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I get it. 100%. I get it.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're in a
and even like you're saying,
they had like raw like strength. Like the brutes weren't no like they weren't those Sahili, but by all means, they were not slouches. I mean, you got an army that you can manipulate very well, and can also fight incredibly well when the time comes. So it's just like, yeah, I don't necessarily like blame the prophets for like going that direction, because you weren't going to manipulate the Sangheili like that. It just was not going to happen.
And like you're saying, like not only are they a pretty decent army and they're strong, but they're blindly loyal, because there's even that scene in Halo 2, the "please don't shake the light bulb," where literally he just lays out the entire thing
that was
with the Arbiter saying
something that was there when the rings were created, is literally telling you, hey.
And the brute is just like, shut up.
Yeah, he just chucks him and then they fight. So they just weren't willing to hear it, and that went perfectly with what the prophets wanted.
Really, like, not to like tie it too much into like reality, but like it shows that a lot of times blind faith can lead to those kind of reactions out of people. Like where if you lay something out right in front of them, and this goes for anything from video game opinions to religion and politics. Like if you just lay out something to somebody, plain as day, either they'll hear it and be like, "Whoa, my world's changed," or they will become immediately hostile and just reject it and retreat.
Yeah, it's brutal, and Halo has always been good at that. Halo's always been good at that, though. Halo it often will do its very best to kind of create these sort of stories and scenarios that are awfully similar to situations that either we have experienced in the past or are likely to experience in the future. I'm just hoping that we never get anything similar to the Office of Naval Intelligence ever.
Yeah, would that be crazy?
It's probably already here. So that's probably the most fascinating part about Halo's story, especially given how its influences. You can definitely see influences from other sci-fi, like the 1970s book series Ringworld.
Not even just other sci-fi series. Like there's like references to like the Bible too, like the flood.
Oh no, that was the thing. I was going to build up to that. The
flood,
the fact that Halo is strongly influenced and inspired from the Bible. Almost every part of it has some sort of connection back to the Bible.
Well, you can say it's a cycle.
Fascinating.
You can the way I see it, is what Halo is trying to do with its story and with the terms that these places have, is that these are terms that were passed around and interpreted into like Christianity. You know, you have the Ark, the flood is in the flood. It's like we have our idea of that story, which is, you know, Noah's Ark and blah, 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 and 2 of each species. But the reality is that actually happened, just in a much different way.
Yeah. And it was fascinating, especially when you read the Forerunner trilogy and see how they have actually in those books, they have a human that gets slowly disillusioned over time because this human believes in like these tribal things and believes that the Forerunners are gods and that, you know, when they're born, they're shaped by the librarian and then placed into the mother's womb, that whole thing. And it's like over the course of the books, this human gets slowly disillusioned and is like, wait, this is all science. And he starts freaking out. And it's great.
Well, the more obvious version of that story is Halo 2 itself. And it's fun because you basically get 2 Halo stories in one with that game, because Chief's story is much more bam, boom, let's kick ass Halo. And then the Arbiter is this actually really human story about disillusionment and
Arbiter has the better
finding your
story
where you
in Halo
belong.
2.
Oh, by far. And it honestly, like, it's a story that really speaks to me because, like, I don't want to get too personal, but it mirrors a lot of, you know, things that I've had, you know, thought and gone through in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but, and I just, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. That's it.
I don't want to go too in depth, but
no, it's cool. I mean, that's what Halo does, though. It's really good at telling these stories that are so broad, but they can apply to so many different sort of smaller either feelings or experiences, and that's probably why so many people get hooked on it so easily. And that story does not get any worse when the Covenant actually goes and fights humanity, which, to be clear, we have no idea who fired the first shot.
True.
I would not blame either side.
The thing is that all we really know is that the first one to die was a Covenant soldier.
Good.
But we don't know who fired the shot because the shot did not come from any of the soldiers that were present during the meeting.
Let's try to figure this out real quick. Like, I know there's like no definitive answer, but let's think logically for a second. So, the Senseion were going planet to planet, recruiting other aliens into their Covenant.
Mm-hmm.
So they obviously know, like, there's life beyond themselves. Now, let me ask you this. Before Harvest and before the first, like, time encountering the Covenant, did humanity knew there was alien life in the galaxy? Yes or no? Or do we not know that?
Intelligence did.
So Oni knew there was alien life, but no one else did.
Yes.
So the soldiers that were attacked on Harvest had no idea.
Yep.
I'd be willing to bet
clue.
Humanity probably shot first.
It's like the Office is just like, I feel like causing a problem today.
Well, I mean,
so you usually are.
That, but also it's just like, again, thinking logically about it. I mean, the Covenant go planet to planet, like obviously knowing for hundreds of years before we even run into them, oh yeah, there's life on other planets. And then humanity, I mean, the soldiers of the UNSC obviously have no freaking idea.
I was just saying there was a soldier that was just scared shitless and
well,
just...
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, we don't know. We run into some godforsaken alien that's gonna eat my innards for f***ing breakfast. And then they're like, and then the Sangheili or whoever they encountered first are like, oh yeah, there's more life than what we know on our Covenant. Cool. I mean, granted, they probably weren't that cool about it, but it's just like, I'm just saying, like, the surprise that there's life outside of their knowledge, like, or their species, is already broken. Like, who knows how we reacted personally to seeing an elite? And again, who knows which one of the Covenant we actually saw first? Can you imagine, like, the first thing a human sees is a hunter? Like, oh my god.
First thing they saw was a brute.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure the first thing we saw was a brute. And
yeah,
not only
okay.
that, just a chief.
You got me.
I highly recommend
so messed up.
you read. I highly recommend you read Contact Harvest, because that details that.
If it's,
And I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering correctly, when they were having a little meeting, like first contact meeting, the Covenant didn't, like, obviously didn't have any real interest in, like, making peace with them and coexisting. The entire time they were sort of just snooping around trying to find where all these relics were that they were seeing on their luminary. Yep. So I think the gist of what I got from when I read that was that they were sneaking around and startled somebody while they were sneaking around, and that's how it started.
The first thing you see is a giant space monkey. Yeah, I'd be terrified too. Like, considering now that makes me rethink my answer. Like, the first thing you see is a brute. Now that could go either way.
Well, the way I see it,
absolutely go either way.
Let's think about it. They've had to have seen alien life before this, just not that type of alien life. They've probably just, you got your MOAs, you got whatever that one big thing in Reach was.
Intelligent human life.
You see your first...
I guess is the alien life, I should say.
Alien soldier. You see an alien clad in armor, probably has a gravity hammer, Yeah, I was gonna say, it clearly has some type of weapon. Like, you see something you've never seen. Yeah, you see something you've never seen. You can assume, like, when something is armed. Like, something walking around that kind of looks like humanoid, but also looks ape-ish, and it has some crazy armor on, has a weapon. Yeah, like, it would not surprise me in the slightest.
There's actually...
He had the hammer.
Yeah,
there's actually another detail. Yeah, he did. There was actually another detail, though, about this whole thing. Yeah, like I said, we don't know who fired the first shot and started the actual conflict. But the funny thing is that we know for a fact who committed the first casualty of the war, and it's a HORROCAST.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, I do remember.
Because here's the thing: there was a moment where a Covenant, like a scouting ship, ran into a human transport ship, and without going into too much detail, a couple of these humans are just like, what is going on? What did I just bump into? And the crew of that scouting ship decided to explore the human ship a little bit.
Oh no.
Including the HORROCAST. And so these humans see them, obviously freak out and start flipping
I mean, yeah.
And it starts getting all hostile. And the HORROCAST throws a rock so hard that it goes through one of their heads.
Oh my gosh.
And again, they were looking through the ship because on their luminary it showed, hey, there's a relic on here.
Mm-hmm.
So they go in and they only find humans. Where's the relic?
Unfortunate. How you doing? They're lighter than some.
There's supposed to be a ton of relics here, and I'm just seeing a ton of humans. What's going on?
I don't get it. Me and my pea brain, I don't understand.
I don't get it.
This is why I need the prophets to think for me.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's those early war facts are some of my favorites. But then we get into the real nitty gritty.
Why, like, I want another Halo game that's like the style of. Can you like imagine like a Reach like styled gritty horror-esque horror vibes like FPS version of Harvest? I know we got into Halo Wars, but can you imagine if we got like a game about Harvest with like the similarities of Halo Reach? That
wasn't even the first Battle of Harvest. That was the second Battle of Harvest. So yes, we do need a game about the first
Harvest
battle.
survived for there to be a second Battle of Harvest is pretty impressive.
Nothing short of a miracle. I would literally give my left foot for an FPS like version of Harvest. Like even just as a Marine, or just, you know what, screw it, like just throw in an OD, like making an ODST game about Harvest.
Mm-hmm.
That would
because
be so
I mean,
cool.
I don't know. I know there were Spartans on Harvest, but I mean, you could introduce a new character or find a way to work in old characters. But you know, an ODST's perspective of Harvest would be actually insane, and I would be here for it.
It would.
Were there Spartans on Harvest? I honestly don't know. I'm just asking.
The Spartans
wasn't Red Team on Harvest?
Spartans were deployed during the time of Harvest. Spartans were ready to go by that point.
That's what I'm saying. Like from the start to finish, and if they were like deployed in the middle of everything, like that's why I feel like it'd be more likely to have like work an ODST in there rather than a Spartan, so it'd match up with the canon.
Yeah, they were wearing OG Mark IV armor, I believe, not Chiefs Mark V.
be cool to like reference the Spartans after they were deployed, like throw references to Halo Wars into it, like in the middle of everything. But oh my gosh, like I would love, with the modern technology and the engine that we have now, like I would love a game like that. I would adore it.
Since we're coming close to the end of our time, I'm just gonna wrap up the general story of the Covenant, and then we can do whatever else talking we want to do.
Okay.
Pretty much from there, it's kind of cut and dry. War is a thing.
What is it good for?
The Covenant are on a constant goal to wipe out humanity at all costs. Humanity is stubborn and will not die. They survive surprisingly well, despite the fact that over the course of 20 years, because the war itself was roughly like 23 years. Or no, 27 years. Over the course of 27 years, humanity had lost hundreds of planets, billions of people.
It's the only reason it probably went on that long. It's just because of how many colonies we had on different planets.
That's kind of hilarious, actually. The Covenant has thousands. Like, I don't even think we can number how many ships the Covenant has, but we can't really exactly number how many colonies humanity has either. Because the Covenant don't have that many confirmed colonies because they all live on high charity. But humanity has tons of them. So it took them a long time to get to the inner colonies, but pretty much the only goal of, let's say, like Thel, the Arbiter from Halo 3, when he was doing his whole human destruction campaign, his whole goal was just to burn through all the colonies until he reaches the ones that matter. And eventually he did. He attacked Reach.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal when they got to Reach, because that meant they not only found a critically important planet that was housing all sorts of Forerunner information and Spartan intel and Office of Naval Intelligence stuff, so much stuff that you would have to delete with Cole Protocol. They not only that, but they had made it to the inner colonies, and the inner colonies are basically the heart of human life. So the closer that they get to the center of the inner colonies is the closer they get to Earth, which that did, of course, happen. Granted, they did it on accident, and they didn't know that they had shown up on Earth, but they did pull up to Earth, and Earth responded by firing a lot. But unfortunately, despite the fact that it was only one ship, most of their defenses were destroyed by that one ship. So that was very pathetic. But that's how it kind of is.
I think it's safe to say the Cole Protocol probably saved humanity.
Probably.
What
multiple
is that?
times. Cole Protocol is basically if at any point any form of shipboard AI or any other form of information that could leak the location of Earth is present, it must be destroyed in the event that the Covenant finds it. So let's say a ship needs to get abandoned. Well, you're going to have to set that ship to either self-destruct or tell the AI to delete all information on the ship and then itself.
Like, Covenant pulls up, memory wipe.
Yep.
So somewhat similar to
even before the battle has started.
somewhat similar to Pillar of Autumn, then basically.
Pretty much.
That was detonated to like destroy the ring, obviously, but like.
He still did Cole Protocol. That was
right.
like him crashing the ship and getting Cortana off the ship was part of Cole Protocol. So that was all accurate. But upon getting to Earth, they do their whole song and dance. We all know what happens here because that is the events of Halo 2 and Halo 3. And so you must be silenced. Truth is killed. Truth also killed the other two prophets, but we'll get into that later. And the overall story of the Covenant kind of ends on sort of like the fall of Rome kind of vibe, because one day the Covenant is a shining example of unity and uniformity and sort of a interspecies success story by that point anyway. But then one single day passes after that, and it is nothing but civil war, flood infection, and no one
famine,
left alive.
Plague.
It really did take one day for High Charity to fall and for trillions to die. So it was ridiculous. And after all that happened, the Covenant decided, basically, like whatever was left of the Covenant's government decided that it was best to either return to their home worlds or to make their own factions. In the case of the Sangheli, for example, they made all sorts of different ones. We had Servants of the Abiding Truth. We had the Swords of Sanghelios. Jewel Mdama made his own version of the Covenant called the Storm Covenant. There was just all sorts of different factions that just kind of popped up trying to uphold various either antitheses of the Covenant or mantras of the Covenant. So it was all sorts of different stuff. Lots of fighting still happened. And it was the Office of Naval Intelligence's job to watch all of them to make sure that none of them did anything that could potentially risk humanity. And of course, that involved some pretty not great
based
things.
stuff. I mean,
Like
yeah.
trying to kill them all.
Exactly.
Possibly
So-
provoking another war.
Maybe.
So in the end, the Covenant
Doesn't even
is probably
matter.
one of the most powerful spacefaring organizations that you could probably find in Halo lore. At the height of their power, they probably would have actually put up a pretty decent fight against something like Forerunners. Just because of the fact that they had so many ships. On one-to-one fighting, not even close, but in terms of ships, their ships are basically ripped right off from Forerunner tech anyway, so they're using copy and paste in a way with their own special designs and such.
Okay, here's the issue with that, though. Have you... I can't remember if you... I know I asked. Did you read... what was the name of it? The one with... is Onyx. Ghost of Onyx. Have you
No.
read that yet? Okay. Sentinels versus Covenant fleet. Sentinels win.
Well, yeah. I mean, we also see that in Halo Wars 2. A bunch of Sentinels split a ship in half.
Yeah,
But-
but like Onyx was a Forerunner planet, and they had like Sentinel production in there, and they just had gazillions of Sentinels that could form up to basically create their own ships, literally just one shot any cruiser.
They were a genius afterthought.
Just
They weren't
with
even
Sentinels.
involved with the Forerunner fleet at first. That was like when the flood became a thing. They were like, we need something that's not alive. And so they made the Sentinels.
Yeah,
But
those guys were terrifying.
they were great. They were very helpful. And their emotionless destruction knows no bounds.
Yeah.
But the Covenant itself was incredibly impressive. It's just all of its background story is nothing but sadness and destruction. So it's like it looks great on the outside and on the inside. High Charity is very spacious, but but it's highly recommend book for your next vacation in High Charity. Not right now though. Not a good idea right now. I hear there's an infection going around.
That's not
think they
for
got
another
bed
like
bugs, bro.
500 years.
But yeah, that's kind of the gist of the Covenant, so I'm gonna leave that one there. I think that now is a good time to move on to our after show, gents. So I'm going to end the episode here. We appreciate you so much for listening, though. We like that we're actually getting into topics that all of us can fully contribute to. I especially am a fan of that, because as much as I love talking about precursors and forerunners, I don't like only talking about precursors and forerunners. So next week, though, you can feel free to hop over onto that one, because next week is going to be all about the UNSC and what is more interesting than watching humans unite somehow against a common threat. Knowing how the UNSC started and where it's at now, it's a fantastic story. So highly recommend that you join in for us on that episode next week. But for now, if you're a patron, then stay tuned, because after show will be coming up next. If you're not a patron, you should really consider subscribing, because we got some really good conversation going on down there too, and it's not just strictly Halo. We're just out here vibing for like an hour. So feel free to hop on over there, and we'll see you all there. Thank you very much for listening.
The library was produced and published by JumperScape Audio. Funding was provided by our fantastic patrons on Patreon. If you enjoy the show and wish to support JumperScape's future projects or get some sweet benefits, join our Patreon at patreon.com/JumperScape or become part of this truly special community at discord.gg/JumperScape. Thank you for your listenership, and we hope you enjoyed.